Hello and welcome to the fourth lesson in the U.S. Citizenship Preparation Class. Today we are talking about the three branches of government. First things first, let's do some keywords. Executive. Executive. Executive is having to do with the president. It is one of the three branches of the U.S. government. Legislative. Legislative. Legislative has to do with lawmaking. It is another branch of the U.S. government. Judicial. Judicial. The judicial branch has to do with the law, the courts. It is another branch of the U.S. government. Veto. Veto is the power of the president to reject or not approve a law. That's a veto. Cabinet. Cabinet. Those are the leaders who advise the president. It is the president's cabinet. Vote. Vote. That is to state one's choice of a candidate or an issue in an election. To vote. Capital. Capital. The capital is the city where the government's legislative body meets. White House. White House. The White House is the residence and workplace of the U.S. president. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. President's Day. President's Day is a federal holiday to honor Presidents Washington and Lincoln. President's Day. Now let's go a little deeper into the three branches of government. The Constitution establishes three distinct branches of government. So we have the president, Congress, and the courts. The president is in charge of the executive branch. That is the branch that enforces laws and makes sure people follow the laws of the United States. Congress is the legislative branch. Congress makes the laws. And the courts are the judicial branch of the government and can decide if the laws follow the Constitution. Okay. The Constitution separates the government's power into three branches to prevent one person or group from having too much power. So why do we have three branches of government instead of just one? It's to divide the power. Okay? The separation of powers creates a system of checks and balances. We want to divide that power. We don't want just one person with all the power. So separation of powers is the division of responsibilities among the three branches of government. So to illustrate the three branches of government, we have Congress making the laws, the president approving the law or vetoing, rejecting the law. So the president will sign or approve the law or veto, reject the law. And then we have the Supreme Court who can decide if the laws are constitutional. So you can see how the three branches have to work together. Okay? The United States has something called the rule of law. And the United States follows the rule of law to help make sure that the government protects all people equally. The rule of law states that everyone must follow the law, that leaders must obey the law, that the government must obey the law, and that no one is above the law. So again, the rule of law is there to make sure that everyone is treated equally and fairly. Today, we will talk a little bit more about just the executive branch. We will save the other two branches for next week, but today we're going to touch a little bit more onto the executive branch. Remember that the president is in charge of the executive branch, the president. So, electing the president. We elect a president for 4 years. The people did not want someone like a king to be president or have all the power for life. They didn't want the power to stay within just one family forever, right? They wanted the people to elect the president. And we elect the president for 4 years, and then a president can serve no more than 2 terms. So a total of 8 years maximum. So it's very important that the people have their election every 4 years for the president. And we have this election for the president in early November on a Tuesday. One of the reasons November was chosen was to allow the farmers to complete their harvest before having to go to the polls. And also November was the month right before maybe the strong winter weather hit as well. So November was that month that they chose. Every law begins in Congress. So if Congress agrees and passes a proposal called a bill, then it is sent to the president. The president can sign the bill if he or she agrees that it should become a law. So the president signs bills which make them into laws. If the president does not agree with a bill, he or she can veto. Veto means to reject. He can veto the bill. The president is in charge of the executive branch of the federal government, not the state government, but the federal government, the national government. The president is also commander-in-chief of the military. It was important to our founding fathers to make sure that someone that the people elected was in final charge of the military. And even though the president is the commander-in-chief of the military and commands the armed forces, Congress still needs to approve many decisions. So remember that checks and balances. So not all power is held within one branch. The president surrounds himself or herself with people he or she trusts to help make important decisions. So they have to rely on experts, right, to help them make all these decisions. So the cabinet includes the secretaries of 14 different departments, also includes the vice president and the attorney general. So some countries, they have ministers or ministries, right? So our secretaries are like ministers and our departments are like the ministries. So if you have the book, all the cabinet positions are listed on page 9. But if you don't have the book and you're just looking here, you can see this is a picture of President Trump's cabinet, and you have the Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of State, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and then again the Attorney General and the Vice President. So the President surrounds himself or herself with people that they trust, and those people are in charge of advising the president. What should we do in different situations or circumstances? Okay. Political parties. The Constitution did not establish political parties, but they naturally formed as people had different viewpoints and thoughts about the directions of the country. The two major political parties in the United States are the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Now, political party membership in the U.S. is voluntary. You do not have to be a member of a party. Okay? The political party of the president now is the Republican Party. In the event that the president can no longer serve, who becomes president? Naturally, right? If the president can no longer serve, the vice president becomes president. Now, if both the president and the vice president can no longer serve, then who becomes president? It's the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is in charge of the House of Representatives. We're going to talk more on that next week, though. Okay? So if both the president and the vice president can no longer serve, then the Speaker of the House becomes president. Okay? The Speaker is the third in line. Now let's talk about some civics text questions. Now that you have a little background information, let's see if you can answer some of these questions. So get out those flashcards. You're going to write down these questions and the answer that you will remember on the back. So you're going to add a whole bunch more questions to that stack of flashcards. I think we have 17 more questions today. So let's see if you can remember what we just talked about. Name one branch or part of the government. Name one branch or part of the government. So here you can say Congress, legislative, president, executive, the courts, or judicial. Okay, just one of those. Next question. What stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? What stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? The answers here can be checks and balances, or you can say separation of powers. Okay. Either answer will be correct. So on your flashcard, just write one of them. What is the rule of law? What is the rule of law? Everyone must follow the law. Leaders must obey the law. Government must obey the law. No one is above the law. Okay? So again, there's 4 choices. Just need one answer. Who is in charge of the executive branch? Who is in charge of the executive branch? The president. We elect a president for how many years? We elect a president for how many years? 4. 4 years. In what month do we vote for president? In what month do we vote for president? That's November. November after the harvest, right? November, right before winter. What is the name of the President of the United States now? What is the name of the President of the United States now? That is Donald J. Trump, Donald Trump, or you can just say Trump. What is the name of the Vice President of the United States now? The Vice President. If the President can no longer serve, who becomes President? The Vice President. If both the President and the Vice President can no longer serve, who becomes President? The Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House. Who is the commander-in-chief of the military? Who is the commander-in-chief of the military? The president. Who signs bills to become laws? The president. Who vetoes bills? Who vetoes bills? The president. What does the president's cabinet do? What does the president's cabinet do? It advises the president. Advises the president. What are two cabinet level positions? Okay, so here, remember we just listed them. I'm going to show you them again, but you just need just two, okay, out of the 16. So again, Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Labor, blah, 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 etc., etc. And here is the full list. You're going to pause me, pick two of those, write them on your flashcard, okay? And just remember those two. Don't worry about the rest. What are the two major political parties in the United States? What are the two major political parties in the United States? We have the Democratic and Republican parties. Democratic and Republican. What is the political party of the president now? What is the political party of the president now? It is the Republican Party. President Trump is a member of the Republican Party. Okay, very good. Those are more civics questions, and now we have some reading and writing practice. Let's take a look at this. Can you please read that question there? It says, where is the White House? Read it with me. Where is the White House? Now you're going to practice writing this sentence. Ready? The White House is in Washington, D.C. The White House is in Washington, D.C. Okay, so copy that down and practice, practice, practice. Let's try this one. Let's read together. Who lives in the White House? Who lives in the White House? I'm going to practice writing this one. The president lives in the White House. The president lives in the White House. Practice writing that sentence. Let's read together. When do we vote for president? When do we vote for president? Now let's practice writing. We vote for president in November. We vote for president in November. Okay. Let's do one more. When is President's Day? When is President's Day? Read that with me. When is President's Day? Now let's write. President's Day is in February. President's Day is in February. And here it is. President's Day is in February. Take a look at that February. There's a weird little R in there, right? It's almost like it says February, but we don't pronounce it that way. We just say February. But there is a weird little R in there. So be careful there. And then also we have this apostrophe after the S. Usually you see the apostrophes before the S. We have it after the S here because President's Day celebrates more than one president. And so it's plural, apostrophe. President's Day is in February. Again, small errors. If you forget that apostrophe, it's okay. Don't worry. Thank you all once again for watching. Keep studying and stay well.